The sky burned red above the battlefield. Smoke rose from the broken ground and the sound of war echoed all around. Explosions shook the air, and laser fire lit up the ruins. It was a war between humans and the Drexari, an alien race feared for their power and hatred of Earth's people. Human soldier Dane Carter moved quickly through the rubble. His armor was scratched, and his rifle was low on power. He had been fighting for hours. All he wanted now was to get his unit out alive. The enemy was closing in fast. Suddenly Dane stopped. A soft sound reached his ears. It wasn't gunfire. It wasn't the shout of orders. It was crying. A soft, frightened sob. It came from behind a broken wall, near the wreckage of a transport pod. Dane turned his head, unsure. Could it be a trap? He moved carefully, aiming his rifle at the sound. As he stepped closer, he saw a small shape hiding under a metal sheet. It was a child. A Drexari child. She had glowing blue skin, silver eyes full of tears, and small horns on her head. She looked no older than 5. The child was shaking with fear. Dane lowered his weapon. She looked up at him with terror, thinking he might kill her. After all, he was a human, and humans were told the Drexari hated them. But he did not attack. Instead, Dane slowly took off his helmet and knelt down. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The child didn't move. Then, without warning, a blast hit the ground behind him. Dane's comm crackled. "Carter, we're pulling back. Hostiles inbound." He looked at the child again. She was frozen in fear, unable to run. Dane made his decision. He picked up the child and covered her with his body just as another explosion tore through the ruins. Debris flew everywhere. Shards of metal struck his back, cutting into his armor. Pain shot through him, but he held on. The child screamed once, then clung to him tightly. Dane rolled behind a fallen engine and shielded her, wrapping her in his arms. Laser shots flew over them. The enemy was getting closer. Dane's breathing was heavy. He could feel blood running down his side. His armor was damaged. His rifle was useless now. Still, he didn't let go. He looked down at the child. Her eyes were wide, watching him closely. She didn't understand why this human was protecting her. Why he hadn't left her to die. "Stay with me," he whispered. "I'll get you out of this." More footsteps came near. Voices in the alien tongue shouted from beyond the wreckage. Dane knew they were searching for survivors. If they found him, they would shoot first and ask questions later. But then, everything went silent. The footsteps stopped, and then out of the smoke a tall figure stepped forward, a Drexari woman. Her armor was black and scarred, and her eyes were sharp with fury. Her horns were longer, her presence powerful. She had a blade in one hand and fire in her eyes. She was the child's mother. She saw her daughter in the arms of a human, and she roared in rage. Dane didn't move. He was too weak. But he didn't let go of the child. The mother stepped closer, ready to strike. The child cried out, "Mama, no! He helped me!" Her voice stopped the warrior in her tracks. The mother blinked in surprise. Her weapon lowered slightly. She stared at Dane, then at her daughter, then back again. The human was bleeding. His armor was torn. He was barely holding on, but he had not harmed her child. In fact, he had protected her. She took a step closer. "Why?" she asked in her language. "Why would a human save a Drexari child?" Dane coughed, forcing a smile. "Because she's just a kid. That's all that matters." The mother fell silent. Her hand trembled. The other Drexari warriors behind her stayed still, confused. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the mother dropped her blade. She knelt beside Dane and gently took her daughter into her arms. The child held on to both of them. And for the first time in this long war, a human and a Drexari sat side by side, not as enemies, but as something more. Dane's eyes began to close. Darkness pulled at him. Before he passed out, he felt a soft hand touch his wound. Warmth spread through him. The mother was healing him, with alien energy. As he drifted into unconsciousness, he heard her whisper, "You saved my child. I will not forget. And in that moment, something began to change, not just between them, but in the heart of the war itself. The air was still thick with smoke and fire when Seriana landed. Her boots touched the broken soil of the battlefield like thunder. She had followed the distress beacon of her daughter's escape pod. Her squad had tried to stop her, but she refused to listen. The signal had gone silent minutes ago, and her heart was filled with dread. She stepped through the ruins, eyes sharp, senses alert. Then she saw it. A human soldier, bloodied, armor torn, lay unconscious on the ground. And in his arms, wrapped tightly like a treasure, was her daughter. Her heart stopped. The child she had searched galaxies for was safe, but held by the enemy. Seriana's first instinct was rage. She unsheathed her plasma blade, ready to slice the human where he lay. The energy weapon glowed hot in her hand, trembling from the fury in her chest. But before she could move, her daughter looked up with wide, wet eyes and whispered, "No, Mama." "He saved me." Seriana froze. The word struck her harder than any weapon. She scanned the scene again, slowly this time. The human had wounds on his back. His body was curled like a shield over her daughter. His weapon lay broken beside him. There was no sign of a struggle, and then she saw it. Shrapnel buried deep in his side where he must have taken the blast meant for the child. Her blade lowered slowly. She dropped to her knees, her breath shaking. "He protected you?" she asked, voice trembling. The child nodded. "He covered me when the fire came. He didn't run." Seriana felt something inside her crack. Her people had taught her that humans were monsters, cold, selfish creatures of war. But this one had thrown his life between death and her daughter. No soldier would do that for the enemy, not unless he saw something more. She leaned forward, placing her hand gently over the soldier's wound. The biosuit hissed as her healing energy passed through it. Glowing veins of blue light spread across his skin as she worked. She had never touched a human before. He flinched, his eyes opened just a little. He stared at her, confused, blinking. "Did we win?" he muttered weakly. Seriana gave a short breath of a laugh, sharp and bitter. "You won something," she said, "but I'm not sure what." Dane coughed, trying to sit up. "The kid, is she okay?" "She is," Seriana answered quietly. "Because of you." She looked at him longer now. He was just a man, young, tired, human. Yet in that moment, he didn't feel like an enemy. He felt like someone who understood what it meant to protect, to care, to love. Behind her, her Drexari warriors finally arrived. They raised their weapons when they saw the human. But Seriana raised her hand. "No," she commanded. "Lower your weapons." The warriors hesitated. "He is not our enemy today," she said firmly. One of them stepped forward. "Commander, with respect, that is a human soldier." "He saved my daughter," Seriana snapped. "Would you have done the same?" Silence followed. Then slowly, the warriors obeyed. Weapons went down. Seriana turned back to Dane. "What is your name, human?" "Dane Carter," he whispered. "I am Seriana. My people will not harm you while I stand here. That is my vow." Dane gave a tired smile. "Then I guess I picked the right kid to save." Her daughter crawled back into Dane's lap and hugged him. The gesture made Seriana blink away emotion she didn't understand. It wasn't just war anymore. It was something deeper. Enemy, protector, stranger, hero. She didn't know what to call this man, but she knew the galaxy would never see him the same again, and neither would she. The calm didn't last long. Just when Seriana had begun healing Dane's wounds, a loud metallic screech filled the air. It was followed by heavy stomps, rhythmic and fast, like a giant metal beast approaching from the shadows. Her warriors stiffened. Dane opened his eyes again and whispered, "That's not your people." "Is it?" "No," Seriana growled, rising to her feet. "It's the enemy of us both, From the smoke, black war drones emerged. Tall machines, twice the height of any living being, covered in rotating guns and scanner lights. These machines did not care who was human or alien. They killed everything. They were from the rogue AI army known only as the Cleansers, the ancient machines left over from a forgotten war, now reactivated to destroy all life. The Drixari warriors quickly formed a defensive line surrounding Seriana and the child. Dane tried to lift his weapon, but it was too damaged. He pushed himself to his knees anyway, weak but not willing to sit still. "You can't fight," Seriana told him. "I have to try," Dane said. "I'm not letting that thing take her." Seriana looked at him with something close to respect. The lead drone scanned them with a red beam. Then it spoke. Biologicals detected. Purge sequence initiated. Its chest opened, revealing a glowing plasma cannon. Without thinking, Dane lunged forward and knocked the child down just as the cannon fired. The blast hit a Drixari warrior beside them, vaporizing him instantly. Seriana screamed in rage and charged with her blade glowing. Dane picked up the fallen warrior's weapon. It was Drixari tech, heavy and strange in his hands, but he aimed, and fired anyway. To his surprise, the weapon roared to life. He blasted the drone's shoulder, knocking it slightly off balance. "Not bad for a human," Seriana shouted, while slashing through a smaller drone. The other Drixari warriors looked at Dane with surprise. A human using alien weapons standing in defense of their commander and her daughter. It was something they had never seen before. The battle became chaos. Drones kept coming from all sides. Seriana and Dane fought side by side, each covering the other's blind spots. She moved like wind, fast, sharp, precise. Dane was slower, but smart, using cover, distractions, and traps. Together, they were unstoppable. The child hid beneath a broken vehicle, watching her mother and her protector move as one. Her tiny hands shook, but her eyes were filled with wonder. She had never seen such unity before. Not between her kind and the humans. Just as another drone raised its cannon at the child, Dane screamed, "No!" and threw himself forward. But before the blast could hit, Seriana dove in from the side and sliced the machine in half. Both the human and the Drixari mother gasped for breath, wounded and tired. Around them, burning drone bodies littered the field. Finally, the last drone fell. Silence, only the crackle of small fires remained, and the sound of a child softly crying, out of fear, yes, but also relief. Dane dropped to his knees. Seriana stood still, her hands shaking. "We would have died if not for you," she said quietly. "We all fought," Dane replied. "Together." One of the Drixari warriors stepped forward. He looked at Seriana, then at Dane. "This human fights like one of us." Seriana nodded. "No, he fights better than most of us." The child ran to Dane and hugged him again tightly. The warmth of her tiny arms made his pain fade for a moment. As the smoke cleared and stars began to shine through the broken sky, Seriana said something that no Drixari had ever said to a human before. "You are welcome in my shield circle. That means you are under my protection now, and the protection of all who follow me." Dane looked up at her, confused. "You just made me family," he asked. She nodded. "For saving my daughter, you have earned it." The remaining Drixari looked at each other, unsure, but no one challenged her. A human. Inside the Drixari shield circle, something was changing. But far above them, beyond the clouds, something else had noticed too. A hidden drone silently transmitted the footage of the battle to every network in the galaxy, and the whole galaxy was about to witness the beginning of a story that would shake the stars. The battlefield behind them was burning, but ahead, just past the crumbling rocks and twisted metal, they found silence. A cold wind blew through the wreckage. Clouds above swirled with lightning. Acid rain began to fall in slow drops that hissed against the ground. It wasn't safe to stay in the open. They had to find cover, fast. Seriana carried her daughter close, eyes scanning the terrain. Dane limped beside them, one hand pressed against his side. His wound was still fresh, but he said nothing. Every step hurt, but he stayed close to the child, making sure she didn't slip on the wet rocks. There, Dane pointed weakly. A crashed ship. It's human. Maybe still has power. Ahead was a fallen Earth Union scout vessel, half buried in the mud. Its lights were dead and one wing was torn off. But it was shelter. Seriana nodded. Move, before the sky turns toxic. They entered the broken ship just as the storm fully broke. Outside, the wind howled. Green rain poured down, burning small holes into the metal hull. Inside, it was dark and cold, but safe. The child curled up between a broken seat and a survival blanket. She looked up at her mother and Dane. Will we be okay? She asked softly. Seriana placed her hand on her daughter's head. Yes, he will protect us, she said, glancing at Dane. And I will protect him. Dane sat down with a groan. Teamwork, huh? Seriana didn't smile, but there was a calm in her eyes. Strange, how easy it becomes when it matters. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the storm tear the world outside. In the soft blue emergency light, they looked at each other not as enemies, but as survivors. Seriana finally spoke. Tell me, Dane Carter, why did you do it? Why risk your life for my daughter? Dane looked at her and sighed. Because she was just a kid, lost, crying. Didn't matter if she was alien or not. Even though you knew we might kill you? I knew. He nodded. But I also knew I couldn't leave her behind. Seriana looked down. I lost my mate in this war. He died saving Drexari warriors from a collapsing tunnel. They honored him, called him brave. But even then, I never saw a human do what you did. Dane's eyes softened. I lost my brother. He was captured years ago. We never found him. They said it was your people. A long pause. Both of them looked away, their memories heavy. Then, Seriana did something unexpected. She pulled a small glowing stone from around her neck. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. This is a memory stone, she said. We pass it to those who share pain and truth. She placed it in Dane's hand. He blinked. You trust me with this? I trust what you've already done. The galaxy saw war in you. I saw something else. He held the stone quietly. Then the child stirred and spoke in her soft voice. Does this mean we're friends now? Dane smiled for the first time in hours. Yeah, kid, I think it does. Suddenly, a soft beep came from the ship's console. A weak power signal blinked to life. Dane stood and checked it. Still has one emergency transmission left, he said. Seriana stepped forward. You'll call for help? Dane shook his head. No, not for humans, not for war. He pressed a few buttons. I'm sending a message out, showing what happened here. The truth. Seriana frowned. What truth? That a human and a Drexari saved each other. And maybe this war doesn't have to go on. The message was sent. Outside, the storm still raged. But inside, that wrecked ship, something rare was born. Hope. And far above, across satellites and war fleets, Dane's message traveled like a spark in dry grass. A human. An alien child. And a mother once full of hate. Together, they had taken the first step toward something that could change the galaxy forever. The storm outside had passed, but the real danger was only just beginning. Inside the broken ship, Dane sat with the Drexari child asleep against his shoulder. Her tiny hand still held onto his armor. Seriana stood near the door, watching the fading clouds, her senses alert. She had not slept. She could feel something wrong. Then, she heard it. The sound of wings. Silent. Fast. Drexari sky hunters. Her heart dropped. She rushed to Dane. You need to hide. Now. But it was too late. A massive crash shook the old vessel. The roof tore open with a sharp metal scream as 3 Drexari hunter elites dropped inside, their black armor glinting with crimson markings. They were her people, but not her allies. Diwon. Leader stepped forward. Commander Vile, one of the most feared hunters of the Drexari Empire. His eyes were cold and his weapon was already drawn. Seriana, he said sharply. Step away from the human. Seriana stood firm. No. Vile tilted his head. You are protecting him? A human soldier? Seriana raised her chin. He saved my daughter. He protected her with his own life. That doesn't matter, Vile said, his voice like stone. He is the enemy, and you are breaking our law. Dane slowly stood up. He didn't lift. A weapon. I don't want to fight, he said, but I will if I have to. Vile sneered. You should already be dead. He stepped closer, but Seriana moved in front of Dane, blocking his path. You'll have to go through me, she said. The room fell silent. Even the child, now awake, held her breath. You would raise your blade? For him? Vile growled. I would raise it for truth, Seriana answered. For honor, and for my daughter, who owes her life to this human. Vile's face twisted with anger. Then you are no longer one of us. Another hunter raised his weapon toward Dane. Seriana acted without hesitation. With a blinding flash, she threw her blade. It hit the wall just inches from the hunter's head but didn't touch him. Try again, she warned coldly, and you'll lose more than pride. Vile gritted his teeth. You will be judged for this. You are a commander. You swore loyalty to the Empire. I swore to protect my child, and today, that loyalty belongs to him, she said, pointing at Dane. One of the other hunters looked uneasy. He whispered to Vile, we should fall back. If she's marked him with a shield bond, he's untouchable by our laws. Vile's eyes narrowed. Then she's cursed herself. Without another word, the hunters vanished in a sudden flash of light, beaming away with their transport. The silence that followed was heavy. Dane looked at Seriana. What just happened? I am no longer a commander, she said. I've been marked a traitor to my people. You are now under my shield. Dane blinked. I didn't mean to cause this. You didn't, she replied, but now that you are part of my circle, you will be hunted too. The child looked between them. Where will we go? Seriana turned toward the stars in the sky. Somewhere neither side controls. A place where truth still matters. Dane nodded. Then let's find it. As they stepped out of the wreckage into the cold morning light, a quiet decision had already been made. They were no longer enemies. They were no longer just a mother, a child, and a soldier. They were something new, and the galaxy wasn't ready for them. A week passed. In the cold silence of space on the edge of known systems, a hidden cargo ship drifted through a dead zone. Inside, Dane, Seriana, and her daughter had found temporary safety. But safety didn't mean peace. Dane sat at a control panel, tapping at old Earth tech. Seriana stood behind him, arms crossed. Are you sure you want to do this? He didn't look up. If we hide, nothing changes. But if we speak, maybe, everything changes. You will become a target. I already am. Seriana was quiet. Then she said softly, we both are. The little Drexari girl sat nearby, drawing stars with a glowing marker on the ship's wall. She smiled at her strange new family, part human, part alien, but all connected. Dane inserted a data stick into the console. Okay. Recording now? He took a breath. Then he spoke. This is Dane Carter, Earth soldier, formerly of the 9th Infantry. Pause. I was taught that Drexari were monsters, that they would kill me if they had the chance, but that's not what happened. He looked over his shoulder at Seriana. She met his gaze and gave a small nod. I found a child. Alone. Crying. I could have walked away. But I didn't. I chose to protect her. He leaned forward, voice steady. Her mother, Seriana, should have killed me, but she didn't. She healed me. She fought beside me. She saved me. Another pause. I want the galaxy to know this. Not all enemies are enemies. Not all stories are lies. I don't know if this message will change anything, but if it reaches just one person who dares to hope, then it's worth it. He ended the recording and hit send. The signal launched. A small pulse of light carried it from the cargo ship into deep space. Across human relay stations, Drexari news channels, pirate radio feeds, and independent outposts, the message appeared. It spread fast, quicker than anyone expected. It wasn't polished. It wasn't backed by a government. But it was real. Within hours, it was everywhere. A human and a Drexari mother, standing together. A child smiling between two worlds. A soldier bleeding for someone not his own. A mother offering him her warrior's protection. The galaxy watched. Some cursed the video, called it fake. Propaganda. A trick. But others paused. Others listened. In a human colony, on the edge of the neutral zone, a group of soldiers watched the video in silence. One of them whispered, "If even one of them can do that, maybe we got it wrong." In a Drexari capital city, young warriors sat frozen before the screen. One of them, a rising officer, stood and said, "If she can defy orders to protect a human, maybe our enemy isn't who we think it is." Riots broke out in some places. In others, candles were lit. The video was replayed 1,000,000 times. Dane's face, Seriana's voice, the child's soft laugh. People had seen war. Now, for the first time, they saw something else. Back aboard the cargo ship, Dane stared out at the stars. Seriana joined him. "No turning back now," he said. "We wouldn't want to," she replied. "The path ahead is difficult, but it's real." The child ran to them and held both their hands. "What happens now?" she asked. Dane smiled. "Now, we see who dares to follow the truth." Behind them, the galaxy turned, and somewhere in its vastness, unknown forces began to move. Leaders whispered, generals questioned, rebels planned, and hidden enemies watched. Uneasy, because 3 unlikely souls had just cracked the silence of centuries, and the truth had become louder than war. 3 weeks later, a silver ship slowly landed on the surface of a neutral moon. There were no flags, no armies, just silence and eyes watching from every direction. Hidden cameras, distant warships, spies from both species. But this day, there would be no battle. Dane Carter, wearing a plain soldier's coat, stepped onto the smooth stone floor of the moon's summit chamber. Beside him stood Seriana, armored and tall, proud yet calm. And between them walked the small Drexari child, who had brought 2 worlds together without saying a single speech. This wasn't a courtroom. It wasn't a stage. It was something ancient, used long ago for peace talks before the wars began. Now, after years of blood, it was being used again. High above, millions watched the broadcast. Dane stood before a gathering of both human and Drexari observers, leaders, warriors, elders, and generals. Each one suspicious. Each one waiting to see what he would do. A Drexari elder stepped forward and said coldly, "You are the human who broke our laws, touched our sacred child, and corrupted our commander. Do you have anything to say before we sentence you?" Dane didn't flinch. He stepped forward. "I have no speech," he said. "Only this." He turned to the child and knelt. "You're the reason I'm here. I don't need medals, I don't want titles, just promise me you'll grow up kinder than this world." The child hugged him tight. Gasps echoed across the chamber. It was not custom for a Drexari child to hug, a human, especially in front of the council. But she did it anyway. Then, without warning, Seriana stepped forward, knelt, and removed the glowing command band from her wrist, her symbol of power and rank, and held it out to Dane. "Seriana," a Drexari leader shouted, "you dishonor your people." "No," she said calmly. "I honor the only person who deserved it, She placed the band gently on Dane's arm. In Drixari culture, this act meant only one thing: the transfer of soul debt and sacred bond, a gift never given to an outsider. Not even once. Gasps turned to silence. Then one human officer stood. He removed his hat and placed it over his heart. Slowly, others followed. Then a Drexari youth, one of the warriors watching, stepped forward and knelt. Others soon joined. In that moment, war stopped. Not by treaties, not by armies, but by honor. The broadcast spread across the stars. On thousands of screens, aliens and humans watched as one Drexari mother gave a human the gift of her people's highest respect. And a child stood between them, half of one world, half of another. Later, as the sun of the neutral moon rose, Dane stood alone for a moment. Seriana joined him. "You changed everything," she said. He smiled weakly. "No, you did." She looked up at the sky. "What happens now?" Dane looked to the child walking ahead of them, her tiny feet stepping into history. "We raise her," he said. "Not to hate, not to fear, but to build something better than we ever had." Seriana nodded. Together they walked into the light. Behind them, enemies had become allies, strangers had become family, and a soldier's simple act of kindness had begun the healing of two galaxies.